Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate the invitation, and I'll try not to bore you too badly. And I want to talk today, begin first by saying that a good speaker today is a speaker that doesn't get anyone upset, a speaker that's politically correct, a speaker that can speak and not really say anything. Well, sweetheart, you struck out here today. Because the wife says that I flunked politically correct class, and she also says I'm X-rated. But they've given me a whole lot of do's and don'ts here. I'll try to follow them. I'll try not to mention politics, sex, religion, anything, you'll know what I mean, eh? So, I'm going to talk about, obviously, the language issue today. I'm going to just mention a few aspects of my book and sort of flesh them out a little bit. The book was written to help people like yourselves understand the complexities of the language issue, the whole French-English relationship issue. And I didn't write it to make money, obviously. If I can break even at some point, I'll be happy. And $5 of every sale, of course, goes to your organization here. And once I break even, I'm glad to give the copyright, or rent the copyright out free of charge so that other copies can be printed and you can use it as a fundraiser if you wish. Lady out in the hall says, we got a French problem, Jim. I said, the hell you do, darling. I said, I got the French problem, I'm married to one. Plus, aunts and uncles are French, so I got the inside track on this, but the wife and I really have a great relationship, have a wonderful marriage. She only speaks a few words of English, I only speak a few words of French. We don't get into any of them damned arguments, you know, that gets everybody else going. She says something, I just shrug my shoulders, and I do the same to her. She shrugs her shoulders, and it's all beautiful. But anyway, I want to talk about the French first, and then I'll talk about the English. We're two distinct groups of people, and there are two distinct groups of French. Now, I've had the advantage of studying history at university, and I love history, and as probably some of you know, I've written a few history books. And I have had years of studying the language issue and the French-English issue. So I want to share a bit of that with you. But there are two distinct groups of French. They're very, very different. And I'm going to concentrate on the Acadians, primarily. Now, the Quebec French come from the north of France, primarily, from north of the Loire Valley. The Acadians come from south of the Loire Valley in a place called Saint-Onge, and it's around La Rochelle and that area in there. And most of the French that we have in New Brunswick all come from the families that originated in that area. Now, I'm going to mention a few books here today. One of them, and I know this looks like a great, big, heavy read. Yeah. It isn't. It is a fabulous read. If you really want to understand the French in Canada, and Champlain was an outstanding individual. Any group of human beings would be proud to have Champlain as an ancestor. He was amazing. He was the one person that really understood bilingualism, and I'll get to that in a few moments. But the two distinct groups of French, I'm just going to go back a ways, but the group that we're talking about, like I say, are different, but there are certain key dates in history. And one of them is 54 BC. You say, well, Jim, that's backing off a long way. That goes back to the time when the Romans took on the Celts that occupied France at the time. They beat them very badly at in a great battle, and the group of the Celts that they finally couldn't beat moved out to the coast of France, Saint-Omer. And they have ever since occupied the region around the Saint-Omer region, La Rochelle, that area in there. And they're Celtic people. Our French here are not Frankish people, they're Celtic people. In fact, they're one of the most pure strains of Celts in the entire world. And they're blood kin to the Scottish, the Irish, the Welsh, and the people of Britain. Now, just give me 1 second here, I just realized. The wife wins on this one. She told me I've got to get my a different prescription the next time. I have to put my reading glasses on here for a minute. Sorry about that, but age will do that. Anyway, it's the first time I've really had that much difficulty in reading. So I'm talking about the two different groups of French. And the Quebec French come from the north of France, as I mentioned, and they come from the Norse. They're Norse people. In 910, the Danes occupied the north of France. And it was from the Danes in the north of France who eventually learned French from the surrounding population that eventually conquered England. You may remember this from your high school history. They conquered England, and the French ruled England for 300 years. English was banned in England essentially for 300 years. And so those people have a totally different background than our Acadians. So I'm going to talk about the Acadians and how that they came to be who they are today and why they have such an influence. So when they came here, like my wife's ancestors came here in 1637, after Champlain was the first person, as you may recall, right here in New Brunswick. New Brunswick was the first place in history where Europeans stayed for the winter. And they stayed down to St. Croix Island, and the next year in 1605, they moved across the bay into Nova Scotia, right near Annapolis Royal. And what some people don't realize is you can go and visit that. They found in 1933, they found the original plans to the habitation in a museum in France. And it's built there today, and in the summer it's like King's Landing. They have people playing the parts. I had my picture taken with Champlain the other year down there. And it's built on the original plans on the original site, and it's about 4 miles down on that south of the Annapolis Royal, the town of Annapolis Royal. And it's amazing to see. It takes you right back to 1605. Everything is authentic. It's fabulous. I go down there every once in a while. So in 1613, after only occupying for that short period of time, it was burned by a fellow named Samuel Argall, and it was one of his very wealthy descendants, 300 years later, that paid to have that rebuilt. So it's quite an amazing story, and I have a tie to it because a very close friend of our family's, who's deceased now, was one of the architects on it. But in 1637, after Acadia had gone through from French to, I'm not going to put a lot of detail on this because it was occupied by the Scots for a time, and that's how the name became Nova Scotia, is because the Scots occupied it for a few years. And it was only 2 years ago that they found the actual site of the Scottish fort there. But on from there, in 1637, a fellow named Grizzly. This is all in my book, so I'm just going to outline here a little bit. In 1637, he brought a group of families over from the St. Lawrence region, and that's where our French descend from. Well, it wasn't too long after that. In 1710, France and England got in a war, and as a result of that war and the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, the French in Nova Scotia, who were only about 3,000 at the time or less, they were all given to England, so they became British subjects in 1713. But from then on, people just basically ignored them, and they lived their life the way they always wanted to live it. And the British put in a bilingual governor, but the French, and this has a bearing on our life today, is that the Acadians basically became their own republic. Answered to themselves pretty well because the British just left them alone. So they became very much their own people. And from there, we go to the next stage, of course, which some of us still get blamed for, is that in 1754, France decided that England was weak enough that France could conquer England. So what they did was they started a war. The first thing they did to antagonize the English is they built Fort Beausejour down here on the border. And that was against the treaty. But England was very weak at the time, and France decided, well, now's a good time to take them. Now this, of course, had been going on, and if you read my book, and I hope you do, you will see that this had been going on for a time, and it wasn't amongst the ordinary French and the ordinary English. It's like it is today. It's that little group at the top that always kept antagonisms going. Same as it is today. It's not your ordinary French person that you'll have any problem with. They're just ordinary folks like us. They're great people. But they've got that crowd. There's a few of them down at the University of Moncton and a few of the other ones that love to stir up trouble for the English. That's just the way it is. I know it's not politically correct to say that, but it's nonetheless the truth. So, to come on, so then of course the big thing for the French next was the Acadians was in 1755 was the expulsion. Now the expulsion of the Acadians was one of the darkest days, not only in their history, but in all of history, because it was totally and absolutely unjustified. And after you put all the things in place, and again, this is outlined in the book, it was nothing but a land grab. The governor of Massachusetts, Governor Shirley, was a foul individual in anyone's estimation, and the governor of Nova Scotia was an absolute rectum by the name of Governor Lawrence. Complete jackass. And the two of them wanted rid of the Acadians so they could have all that land in the Annapolis Valley and over around Shirley. And it was no more complicated than that. In the book here, I included a letter that Shirley wrote to Governor Lawrence in 1754. And he said the best thing for us is that we could just get rid of them. Now, that was not the English, as some of them down at the University of Moncton would have you think. Our ancestors were not involved. Okay? So we don't bear any responsibility for that. That was two very bad people and a few more around them that gave the orders, get rid of the Acadians. It was months before the British government even knew, and our ancestors, and I assume that probably a lot of you here are from Loyalist descent, some came much later, we had no ancestors involved in that, nor should we ever be persecuted for that. But some of them, because they don't know any history, they think it was the English. Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't even a good representation. It was two bad sons of bitches that, well, I was supposed to say that, I know, I was supposed to be politically correct. But anyway, they won that land. I know I'm X-rated. But that, you know what I mean. And now every year, the Acadians celebrate the expulsion in August. And they do there's one town where they show something on the wall of them all being sent away. And we can all feel bad about that, but it wasn't our people that did it. That's like, you know, if we could locate Hitler's grandchildren, well, we wouldn't be justified in going out there and hanging them for what their grandfather did. So we're not responsible for the expulsion. Now, we go beyond that, and after that, the Acadians, after the expulsion in 1759, as you may recall, the battle on the Plains of Abraham. That was the end of what's commonly referred to here as the French Indian Wars, but it was actually the 7 Years' War in Europe. It was a war between the great ruling dynasties of Europe. Our ancestors were nothing but cannon fodder in this. After it was all over and Quebec fell, which was only one battle in the whole war, then the Acadians were allowed to return. And what they did after the Acadians returned, they found, first of all their good land had been taken over by the planters in 1760. All that land in the Annapolis Valley and Truro and around had all been taken over and given to settlers from the New England states. And I did one of my degrees down at Acadia University, and down there, that's planter country. And it was the planters that started Acadia University, and that whole valley is filled with their descendants down there. So the Acadians came back very much chagrined at the fact that they'd lost all their land, and because they were Catholic, and religion was a very big thing at that time. Something that we can't begin to understand today is how divisive that religion was then. People hated people because of their religion. So they took the poor Acadians and they strung them out all in a way because they didn't want them near the Protestant communities because they might corrupt them. So that's why the Acadians are way to hell down on the South Shore, and they're over here and they're slum here. They just wanted them out there because they were Catholic, not because they were French. Now, I remember when I was a little boy, my mother's, 3 of her sisters married French Catholics. And of course, my grandmother was a staunch Bible-believing Baptist. And she didn't have a problem with the fact that these guys were French. She had a big problem with the fact that they were Catholic. In fact, she died believing that there's no hope that because these kids turned Catholic. She said, no way, they're going through the pearly gates. Because everybody knows God's Protestant. So they were going in. But no, she had a real problem with that. So anyway, from after that time, the French were basically ignored. They were ruled by a medieval Catholicism because all of the changes that were going on in Europe didn't touch here. Our French did not experience the French Revolution or the religious wars over there. And the priests that they sent over here were told to keep the people under control. So they stayed locked in the medieval Catholicism until the 1960s, until the Great Awakening of the 60s. So, and they were ignored basically by the English. They lived in little isolated areas over there on the East Coast, and they just grew in their own community. And some of you might have seen the tremendous essay by Thomas Friedman in the Telegraph about a week ago. And he's talking about, in America, how they're saying that America's on the decline, that there's whole areas of America that are just dying. He said, no, that's not true. It's not that their whole areas are in decline. He said, those areas where the people stuck together, where they've learned to work together, plan together, and dream together, those areas are not dying, they're vibrant, they're living, and they're going to part of the new America. It's a tremendous, tremendous essay. Well, the Acadians did that. Now, I'm old enough, some of you look like you might be too, to remember the 1960s. And, I mean, those French communities in the 1960s were nothing. And in the 50s, I remember in the 50s, it was when they got out from under the medieval Catholicism and when they elected Louis Robichaud in 1960, and I remember like it was yesterday, because in that election of 1960, I was 12 years old, and I remember going around pounding lawn signs in that said, "Carry on, Hugh John." I was from Carleton County, we were all good Tories up there. I remember one of my neighbors saying, "There's a lot of things I am," but he said, "No, I'm not liberal." Oh yeah, that was Dick Hatfield country. Dick Hatfield, in fact, was my MLA. No comment, thank you. But Louis Robichaud was a tremendous premier. Louis Robichaud was a fair-minded man, and he was a man of vision. And Louis Robichaud was not the one that caused the bilingual problem. In fact, I want to read you actually what he said. The aim of this bill is the extension of rights for all New Brunswickers. It in no way diminishes rights now enjoyed by New Brunswickers. On an individual basis, it is the right of New Brunswickers to be and remain unilingual, or to speak two or more languages. The objective is to ensure that no unilingual New Brunswicker finds himself at a disadvantage in participating in the public life of the province. With respect to the civil service, the fact that a man or woman is unilingual will not be a hindrance to appointment and promotion in the civil service, other qualifications being equal. I think this is a fair bill, and if all of us want to treat it fairly, implement it fairly, and harmoniously, I believe it will lead to much better understanding in New Brunswick. That's the words of Louis J. Robichaud. Now, it was my MLA, Richard Bennett Hatfield, that took the thing way too far and introduced unfairness into it. He went too far. But I'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to finish this by saying, I'll wrap it up, this part of it, with the first Acadian premier was not Louis Robichaud. It was Peter Vigneault in 1923. It was one of the best premiers we ever had. It was Peter Vigneault that built the NB Power. It was Peter Vigneault that built the road system in New Brunswick. New Brunswick had a modern power commission and a modern road system before any of the other provinces, and it was thanks to the first Acadian premier, Peter Vigneault. From then, of course, we had Louis, as I mentioned, we had Bernard Lord. Bernard Lord, well, he was the one that, to help his buddies down at to pacify his buddies down at the University of Moncton, he brought in the office of Commissioner of Official Languages. Talk about that later. And then, of course, we now have Brian Gallant. And however you view Mr. Gallant, he's trying to do his job. They pick on Brian. But you know what? Brian Gallant and Kathy D'Entremont are just doing their job. You hire someone to paint your house, you expect them to go out there and be painting the house when you come back, right? Okay, Brian Gallant was elected by the Acadians, primarily, with our help, okay? Well, of course he's going to look after them. Good gracious, if the people from Sussex here, with whom I have much in common, Well, if we send someone up to Fredericton, we expect they're going to look after us, right? I mean, my people helped form the first political parties here. We came to Sussex in 1784. COUGLE Road up there is named after my ancestor. So we go back to the first settlers here, and before that we came up from Pennsylvania, where we had come with William Penn in 1682. So we have a long history with this area. But no, politicians cater to who elects them. So Brian Gallant is doing just exactly what he's supposed to do. He's looking after those people that elected him. Kathy D'Entremont, she has a job description. That job description was given to her by David Allward. That job description, for anyone that wants to read it, basically says, you are to force people to use French. Okay? That's all she's doing. She's forcing people to use French. Because if she doesn't force it, people won't use it. Now, is there a better way to do it? Well, I believe there is. But I get a great kick out of that. Now, she gets $175,000 a year to do that. As I know, it's not much money in today's world, but hey, okay. Hell, for $175,000, I could probably get most of you guys to do that. But she gets a virtually unlimited travel budget. She's got a staff of 5, gets to go to all kinds of little conferences, and doesn't have a whole hell of a lot to do. But so anyway, just tell you a little aside here. I called up her office here. There was a situation here a while ago, and I called up her office and wanted to meet with her. So I talked to the secretary there. Well, good. A couple of days later, the secretary calls me back. And she said, Mr. COUGLE, she said, I'm awful sorry to tell you about, she says, Mrs. D'Entremont doesn't meet with people like you. Though, I enjoyed that so much. Seriously, it's like, English was obviously her second language, so we would have phrased it a little different, but that's what she says. She says, Miss D'Entremont doesn't meet with people like you. I said, hell, I don't blame her. A lot of people wouldn't. But no, she doesn't meet with ordinary people. And, even though I'm, as probably some of you know, I'm the spokesperson for Save Envy Now. I won't beat that drum this afternoon of how we're going bankrupt and got a $14 billion debt. I won't get on that one. My old ticker won't take it. But, no, I thought it was hilarious. Here we are paying her $175 grand a year. She doesn't talk to people like you. But, anyway, so I was not able to talk with her. But I was at the time I was updating my book, and I wanted to just ask her a few questions, you know what I mean, in dialogue with her. I had no axe to grind or anything, but no, she wouldn't meet with me. Anyway, to sum up that little part of it, the thing that the Acadians have going for them, that we don't, is that they are community. They stick together. They think together. They work together. They act together. As Sharon said, 71% of them come out and voted. The other thing they are is they're incredibly generous. You can't pry money out of the English for anything. Over there, you need money for a political party or for a cause, they're there. Their youth get involved. Now, I go over to visit the in-laws, and of course, I have family, like my cousins are half Acadian over there, some of them. You go to Dieppe, for example. You couldn't get nicer people. All up and down, Bucktouche. Bucktouche is a gorgeous place with nice people. Rishabak, all that area. Can't beat it to go for a vacation. Shediac. We don't have a French problem. No, we have an English problem because they stick together and we don't, as Sharon so aptly pointed out. They're a community. We divide amongst ourselves. Now, I want to give you just a little tiny overview on that. This didn't start yesterday. When the Romans came to England, one of the things that Julius Caesar wrote in his diary, which you might think would be a boring read, but it's pretty interesting. and I put a little blurb from Julius Caesar's diary in my book here. And by the way, that book, not to blow my own horn or anything, because I'm not that kind of a person, but it's the first book of its type ever written in Canada, and it's very accurate, and it is the first book that includes some of this stuff that's kind of should be known if we want to understand this. So when Julius Caesar came, he couldn't believe how the different tribes in England were fighting amongst themselves. He couldn't believe how easy it was to beat them. He said, "This is amazing," and he just pounded them one by one off because they couldn't get them to stick together. In 1745, for example, on my grandmother's side, the Scots came down to fight. Same thing. They lost the Battle of Culloden because they were all fighting amongst themselves, couldn't get along to concentrate on the enemy. So this goes back a long way. So the Romans couldn't believe it. Then the Saxons came over after the Roman Empire fell. They couldn't believe it. They cleaned all the Britons up. Like our ancestors are mostly Saxons and Angles. So they cleaned the Britons out. They said, "My God, this is simple." They drove them up into what was called Caledonia at the time, up into Scotland, over into Wales. Some of them they drove into Ireland, drove other ones over into Brittany. So this is a piece of cake. All these people wanted to fight amongst themselves, be their own little tribe. England was broken up into all of these little tribes. Well, how is that different today? Hell, up where I come from, Carleton County, you can get Bristol fighting Floresville, for heaven's sake. Oh yeah, you get the right issue, boys. When they put the hospital in Carleton County some years ago, now this is a fact. Now Bernard Lord did this. I just couldn't believe it. He didn't do something that dumb. But he told them up there that to decide where to put the hospital, and he put 4 or 5 people on the board. They fought so bad it was just unbelievable. They thought the weapons might come out, it was so bad. And in the end, they fought so bad, because they wanted the hospital here, one wanted there, one wanted here, one wanted there, one wanted over there, and no one wanted to close the little hospitals. And everybody knew that the other hospitals should be both. Like they got one in Perth Andover, should have been closed years ago. The big flood, David Allworth spent millions fixing it back up. It's not even needed because down the road 15 miles is a brand new hospital. Okay? But in the end, instead of putting the hospital where the logical place to put it was in Woodstock, where the population is, they got it stuck way down in a hole up near Heartland. That's the English. That's who we are. We got to get over it. Good gracious. But no, it's just one thing after another. The religious wars we got into in the 1600s, very few people have ever experienced that. Why, we even beheaded the king, as you may recall from the Netflix programs, your high school history. In 1651, they beheaded the king, and they put Oliver Cromwell in for 10 years. And he was such a rectum that they were so glad to get rid of him. He died in a great big thunderstorm, and they figured it was the devil coming to take him away. That's right. And they re-established the monarchy. It was so bad. But they fought something terrible. Remember, it was on television about a year or two ago, they found King Richard's bones, right? Well, that was from the War of the Roses, eh? And after they killed him, they hacked him up. Well, that was 2 families fighting over, and they got all the neighbors involved, everything. And neighbors were killing neighbors over who was going to... That's the English. But the Acadians aren't like that. The French aren't like that. Walk into Quebec and start something. They all get together. They'll throw you out of there. They said, like one of the prime ministers, well, Quebec should be bilingual. They said, the hell with you, it should. And it's all French up there. Go over into Ontario, it's bilingual, all the signs are bilingual. Come into Quebec, it's all French. They don't want any of that. You just won't put up with it. You take on the Acadians. You take on the whole crowd of them. You take on the English, well, you could be taking on Sussex, but St. Martin's, Eldavai, well, Fredericton will go whichever way the wind blows. Okay? But you can't blame the French for that. Gosh almighty, it's like a French woman said She says, you can't blame the French because the English are so stupid. Well, she's got a point.
Yes, she does.
There's no reason for us to be like this. We got a common cause here. Anyway, it goes back now. You want to understand this from a New Brunswick perspective. I'm just going to, this book right here, this little book right here, A Short History of New Brunswick, is a fabulous little read. You can get it at most any bookstore. And another one, if you want to understand Acadian community, this is a delightful read. It's an easy read, it's a fabulous read, and the author just handles it so well. Dean Joe from Halifax. And then, from a loyalist perspective, as to what our ancestors were truly like, here's a fabulous read here, and there's a new edition of this out. Early Loyalists of St. John. And some of my ancestors were among them. You talk about English fighting amongst themselves. Folks, this really does it up big time. Okay? They'd sooner fight than eat. It's just in our blood. But the French aren't like that. They're not like that. And they have a different concept of family. Now, I don't have time here today to get into the whole intricacy that I did in my book within. But the French have a different concept of family. Like you go over into Dieppe, for example, and go see the in-laws. The nicest people you'd ever meet. Any of their relatives come along, they're glad to have come on in, spend the night, cook a meal. My relatives come and oh God, are they coming again? You know, the Cajuns ain't like that. They're family. It's important. It's something that we better learn now before it's too late. So, you see where we're going with this. Now, so what we have is we have a group of French that have made community. Solid, good people. They're doing all of the right things. Then we have on the other side a group of people who have hundreds of years of fighting amongst themselves. But even an alcoholic can quit drinking. You know, I got a friend who hadn't drank for years, but he's still an alcoholic. Can't we stop fighting amongst ourselves? And, you know, we'd say, well, we've been doing this for so long, but, you know, there's a time maybe we should stop. And maybe this is one of those times. Maybe this is the kind of group to do that. As Sharon pointed out, I believe it was, or Rex, see, it's not about rights. Anglophones have all the rights. We're the majority. The French are only 33% of this province. One end they were 40%, they're down to 33%. So it's not that we don't have rights, we just don't exercise them, as she pointed out. Richard Hatfield, who was my MLA, I was talking to about this one time when it first started. And we had kids going into school when this French immersion started. Fortunately, I didn't put them in French immersion because I knew it wouldn't possibly work. Richard Hatfield, we were asking why he was spending so much money on French doing all this. He said, because no one's complaining. He said, no one from the English community is complaining. He said, all the time, he said, there's a delegation of French people in my office. The French, from the University of Moncton, they just had a convoy of people coming to his office all the time, demanding. Well, why wouldn't it? Doesn't that make sense? If you don't ask for something, you're not going to get it. And if someone says no to it, you say, well, okay, well, watch what I'm going to do. Well, they said, we're going to vote for you. Well, yeah, that's what we should do. You're going to treat us like this? I'm going to vote for you. We're too stupid. Part of us are going to vote this way, part vote that way, part vote that way. I mean, look, I'm not supposed to mention politics. Sorry, Rex. But you see, we got one politician that thinks he's going to get French seats in the next election. Well, I hate to break the news to him, but he's not. Why would the Acadians vote against Brian Gallant? That'd be like voting against Santa Claus, for God's sake. He's going to give them, has given them everything they want. He's going to pave Route 11, even though the engineering study told him there wasn't even a third enough cars to warrant it. Well, he's just doing what he's got to do. Those people, they're not going to vote for him if he doesn't do that. Us, we'll vote for you. It doesn't matter. Oh yeah, you can take our money and put it over I mean, 86 cents out of every dollar in this province in tax dollars come from the English. Yet we don't really seem to give a hoot where it's spent. You know? There's no delegation of English people going to see Brian Deland or anyone else up there to complain. We got a $14 billion debt for 751,000 people, of which 30% are on some form of welfare. And as Richard Summer from the University of Moncton wrote in his book Over the Cliff, Steps New Brunswick to Take Down to Avoid Bankruptcy, he says, we're going bankrupt, but no one wants to talk about it. Now that's another English trait. If something's real bad, don't talk about it. Okay? Just sit on your arse, don't talk about it. It'll go away. But this ain't going away. $700 million right now just to pay the interest on the provincial debt, let alone the deficit they're running up. I mean, both governments, this is not a political thing, both governments, David Alder did it too. David Alder had a huge deficit all 4 years he was in there. Now Brian, he's just continuing the tradition of chucking money around like it's going out of style. But eventually that has to stop. But I don't expect it's going to happen right away. Now, I want to talk now about, for a few minutes, on the more difficult part of this, about bilingualism, duality, and self-segregation. Now, I can usually get people upset without too much difficulty, and these are the kinds of topics you do it on. Now, bilingualism is not working. Now, I know you're not supposed to say it, but it's not working. French immersion is not working, and I don't care how much money you throw at it, it's not going to work. Get over it. Okay? Here's why it won't work. I was very privileged, at your expense, and I thank you, to get sent to the School of Modern Languages one time to study French. And I was there for 2 years, like I went to, I don't know, a class or 2 a week. And I even took first year French in university. And I got half reasonable at it. Like I knew a fair little bit of French one time. Not enough to scare you, but you know, just enough to get by. I know hardly any now. Well, it's really simple because I didn't get to practice it. Now, in order to be able to practice French, you sort of have to live in it. To write it is really complicated. Most French people in this province fill all forms out in English, and they read English books. Why is that? English is much easier than French. Now, the French love their language, and I respect that. They want to live in their language. I respect that. But French is a far more complicated language than English. It takes 30% more words to say the same thing in French as it does in English. Okay? You have masculine and feminine words, so on and so forth. And in French, you have to translate things. In English, you don't. If someone invents something this afternoon, we don't translate it. If they say it's a bouquet, that means it's a bucket of a bunch of flowers, which is French. We just put that right in our language. English will absorb any word from any language. Dollar, yacht, those are Dutch words. We just take, you can go through the English language, it's full of French words, Latin words, Greek words. We just don't translate. It's a beautiful language that way. It's the world's most modern language. It was adopted by the European Union. For that reason, it's so versatile. Now, does that mean it's better? Not necessarily, but it's a lot easier. French is a beautiful language if you're French. But it's a difficult language to learn if you're not French. And it's a very difficult language to retain. Now, back in the 1630s, 1640s, Champlain came up with that. This book, I know you think this is a big book. This is a fabulous read. I'm telling you, you can hardly put it down. And even if you're not interested in history, it's fabulous. Anyway, he talks in there how that the only way for people to be bilingual is to live in the language for a time. And what they would do, and the French would send their children to live with the Indians for a couple of years, and the Indians would send their kids to live with the French. Champlain believed that was the only way they could be fluently bilingual enough to negotiate the trade deals and the land deals and so on. So it doesn't matter how much money you put into the current type of French immersion, it's not going to work. Because you just get over it. I know I'll be chastised for saying it, but it's not going to work. I didn't put our kids in French immersion. I'm glad I didn't. If they want to learn French later, I encourage them to do it. But the situation is not working, and it's sucking in hundreds of millions of dollars. Plus, New Brunswick is no more bilingual now than it was 40 years ago, and hundreds of millions of dollars later. Okay? It's not more bilingual. Yes, it should have been by now. It isn't. Now, bilingualism is necessary. The mistake that the core party made was saying we're going to end bilingualism. Now, you cannot do that in a province where a third of your population are a one-language group and one very historically significant group. You can't do that. You have to accommodate them. Now, the reason that we haven't been able to accommodate them adequately is because you have a group of agitators that are agitating behind the scenes trying to make our lives miserable. I've always said that a group of ordinary English people like yourself today and an ordinary French people from Vaucluse or somewhere could sit down and come up with a workable plan, probably in an afternoon, that would work just fine. Yes. Okay? Now, but when you get someone legislating, you're done for. And this is what's happening now, as Rex has pointed out to you people in his very excellent presentations, is that we have a situation now where the agitators have developed something that's terrible. When you have to live under the rule of Cathy d'Entremont, you got problems. Because I don't think that's very workable. So, what are we going to do about it? Well, we've got several possibilities. One, I think, is that we have to recognize the validity of duality. Now, I know that this gets some people to get their ass in the air over it. Sorry, Mom. Mom sent me to college, see, one time. She sent me down there to Fredericton to go to college because she thought that it might be good to get me to associate with better people down there, eh? But at the end of it, she kind of figured it was a waste of my time and her money. But she didn't think it improved me a whole lot. But anyway, you know, duality is workable. And it's understandable. You people, if we're going to go and do something, if we're more comfortable working in our own language, and no one minds that as long as you don't send the bill to someone else. I mean, duality is workable. The party Acadienne had the idea one time, you may recall that, I mentioned it here in my book, that they wanted that the eastern part of the province to become a new Acadia where French was the primary language and English would be the primary language here. There were some smart people behind that, and I must say that I was only in my late 20s, maybe 30 years old at the time, and another fellow and I got the leader of the party Acadienne to come and speak in Fredericton to a group up there. And he was excellent, and he made perfect sense. But the people couldn't see it. They couldn't see, and they couldn't appreciate the fact that the French want to be French. They love their language. Their celebrations, like ours, I'm of Loyalist descent, true blue. We don't celebrate our culture. We don't celebrate the fact that we stood up for what was right when we could stand, and you say, well, okay, we lost, the Americans beat us, yeah, okay. But we stood for what we thought was right at the time, and we got exiled up here, but we don't celebrate that. The Acadians celebrate their culture. In 1886, when they came together, they adopted the Acadian flag and so on and so forth, and when they started to grow as a community, they're very proud of that. There's nothing to stop us from that. But we should never prevent them from being who they are, as long as it doesn't bankrupt us in the process. And this is where we need to negotiate. I mean, it's only natural. If you go over to Dieppe, for example, just an example, that all the French people flock into Dieppe. If you go in there, you will not meet nicer people anywhere. They will talk to you in English. They all speak English there. They'll talk to you in English. They'll be nice to you. They'll invite you in. It's a great place. They're good people. Same as Bactouche. You go up there and there's no better place in eastern North America where you can go for a weekend or a week up to Bactouche. Excellent places to stay. The people are just lovely. They want to live in French. I appreciate that. There's not a problem. We have to appreciate it. You don't see a flock of Canada geese go over, and there's a whole bunch of snow geese in it. You don't see a flock of mallard ducks, a bunch of black ducks in it. They're ducks. They look the same. Very, very difficult to distinguish them sometimes. But birds of a feather, as we always say, flock together. It's a natural, normal thing. We have to respect that, but we have to work out a solution that doesn't bankrupt us all in the process and doesn't keep us from working as a province. When you have things like language tests that screen everyone out, you're not going to have that job, okay? Like 94% of the jobs that were advertised as, quote, bilingual in the last 2 decades went to a French person. Now, bilingual means French. You know it, I know it, we're not supposed to say it. But that's the bottom line of it. If that job is, like, for example, 42% of all the jobs in Ottawa are French. 42%. In a country where the French are 20%, they have 42% of the jobs in Ottawa. It isn't right, okay? Now, Kathy D'Entremont knows this. We've seen her in operation. She knows exactly this. She wants all supervisors in the government, you read this in the paper, she wants all supervisors in the government to be French within 5 years. So if you want a supervisory position, you're going to have to be French. Now, she'll use the word bilingual, but that's horse manure, so let's get over it. And the same thing up there. Whenever someone retires now in the government, they're advertising the job as bilingual, and they're filling it with a French person. Now, that isn't right, okay? Even a right-thinking French person wouldn't think that was right. It's up to groups like yours to do something about that. And to me, the only thing that can be done about it is to change the tack that we're on. We need to get the government to change the Official Languages Act to make it fair. There's nothing wrong with having a bilingual province. There's nothing wrong with accepting the need for duality. I mean, the French have a hospital there in Moncton where the working language is French. Well, that's fair. Why not? There's no trouble to have a French institution and an English institution. That will work. It's workable, but it's only workable when we talk it out. So I think in the short term, what needs to be done is we need to motivate people. We need to teach people. You people need to talk to your neighbors, your children, your family, and say, look, what we want is fairness. And as an aside, it would be a wonderful thing if you people thought about at least changing the name of your organization to the Association for Language Fairness. Because if you say Anglophone rights, no offense, perhaps, but if you say Anglophone rights, it's a we versus them situation. An Association for Language Fairness could accommodate French as well as English. And if we're going to find a solution, it's going to come by working with the French and the English together and enacting proper legislation. Now, I understand that a delegation from your organization approached a major politician recently with 2 what I thought were reasonable proposals. They were drawn up by a lawyer, I'm told. One solution was to get rid of the office of Commissioner of Official Languages. We have 5 commissioners at 175 grand apiece in this little province. We didn't have a Commissioner of Official Languages before. It was only put in there by Bernard Lord to accommodate his buddies at the University of Moncton. We do not need an office of the Commissioner of Languages, official languages now, according to some people. So you either get rid of that was one solution, or you make it a shared post with French and English and call it the Office of Linguistic Harmony or something like that. The other thing that was suggested to this major politician was that the Official Languages Act be amended to state that jobs in the Crown corporations and the civil service would be awarded on a proportional basis at every level of employment. So if you have 100 supervisors, 33 of them would be French and 77 would be English. That is fair, just, and equitable. And this is what we should be aiming for. We should be aiming for the ultimate harmony between the French and the English. We should find a way to make this province prosperous again. And we should find a way to make everything work as it should in all aspects of government. And we cannot do that by giving every position to the French. We have to make it fair. And if we're going to do that, it's going to depend to a large degree on reasonable people proposing reasonable things and telling others about them. As my old friend Bob McCready, once Speaker of the House, said at the end of a speech, he said, "Push, pull, or get out of the road." Thank you.